Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. Alright, so the last time, in the last episode, I spoke about, basically I found like there were two books, two books that really, I wouldn't say like two books that had an effect on my life, because the book that really had the effect on my life was actually the Che Guevara book. But this next book that I'm going to talk about, it kind of changed my direction and what I was about to try, what I was trying to do. Okay, so at this time I was going, I was reading about the the Russian Revolution, and so I would go to like this used bookstore, right? I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the name of this place. I just remember it's on Atlantic Boulevard, close to the Shogun. And like I said, I used to walk there and walk back all the time. I wouldn't rely on anybody. I had no patience for people to come pick me up. And it doesn't matter what time. Even if I stayed up all night, if I had a book in my mind that I needed to get, as soon as 7 o'clock in the morning hit, I see my mother come out, I would go take a shower, and I get dressed, I would change my clothes into like nicer clothes, and I would go and walk. And I would walk to the bookstore. I tried to get there right when they opened up. Even if I had been up all night reading, it doesn't matter. If I had like a book in my mind, I had to get it that day, I go get it. I didn't wait for nobody. So I walked, and I didn't tell you the distance, but I mean, like I said, you could look at Google Maps, but it was no less than a mile and a half to get to the bookshop. No less than, like I said, it's probably more than a mile and a half to get to the bookshop and a mile and a half to get back. So that's 3 miles just going back and forth. And the other bookshop, which is Books A Million, was further down. That was near the mall. So that was like more like 1.75 miles, close to 2 miles to get there, and then another whatever to get back. And of course I'm walking through this wooded area with water moccasins, and also people could be in the woods. I could get robbed out there and killed and nobody would ever know about it. So Allah Mustaan. So the point is that it wasn't, but that's just my mindset. If there was a book I had to get, I'm gonna go get it. I don't care like how far I had to walk. I walk. At that time, I didn't know about taking the bus. None of that. Plus, the buses, they didn't run like this in those days. They just ran down. So you could get a bus going down Beach Boulevard, or a bus going down Atlantic Boulevard, but I couldn't. But because I lived on Beach, I couldn't get a bus going up to Atlantic Boulevard. So it's like I just walk. Everywhere I go, I just walk. If I had to go downtown, I take a bus. But other than that, I'm walking. No taxis. There's no Uber in that time. So it's not even worth taking a taxi. I'll just walk, because the amount of money that I spent on taking a taxi to get that's another book. I could have bought another book, So I'm like, forget that. I'm not taking no taxi. That's another book, So I say, okay, I'll take a taxi. No, I'm not going to take a taxi. I'll spend the money from the taxi. I'll buy another book. That's how I dealt with things. I would just rather walk. So I'm up in the Russian Revolution section, because they had this whole section. They had a section on the Chinese Revolution. This is in the used bookshop. This is not in Books A Million. All right. So they had a section on the Chinese Revolution, where they had like all these like Mao Zedong selected writings books and all the history of the Chinese Revolution. And then they had a Russian Revolution section, where they had like Vladimir Lenin, Karl Marx, all this type of stuff that was affiliated with. Even though Karl Marx is German, and then he died in Britain, but still, it's because it's the association with the revolution, with the ideas of Karl Marx. So they had all his books in that. So this day I was like, you know what, man, I'm like basically memorized all the books. Any book that was of any importance that was in the shelves that were like right in front of my face, I already bought them. Because I mean, this is a used bookshop, so it's like in those days, like maybe $4, $5 a book for the hardcover. So I mean, I get a book like that for like $12. Like an actual proper book size, right? But if it's like a smaller paperback, it'd be like $5. Depends on the book. So all those books, anything of any importance that I wanted or needed or read or found or whatever, I'd already bought it. And the guy knew me. I mean, so it's like as soon as he saw me, he said, "Oh, you're back." I was like, "Yep, time to get more reading material." So this day, I said, you know what, man, I'm going to go down and I'm going to look on the bottom shelves. Let me see what he's got down there, and like those dusty books underneath. So I found a book, and I just saw the word Mujahideen, right? So I was like, that's interesting. All right, what's that? I mean, what could that be about, right? It must be about the Afghanistan thing, right? The conflict in Afghanistan. Now, honestly, like I said, I'm Muslim. Not practicing Islam, but I am a Muslim. And I don't want a Kafir's perspective of the Afghanistan conflict, you know. So if it was going to be like the Russians, you know, perspective of what happened in Afghanistan, I would have just taken the book and thrown it back. But what I saw was it was written by a British journalist who actually traveled to Afghanistan, and he stayed with some of the groups of the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. And he wrote, you know, about their lives and about, you know, and, you know, he interviewed them and he talked to them. So I was like, nah, I got that. Boom. You know, I don't even think I bought another book. I might not even bought another book that day. I might have saw that. Because I don't remember buying anything else. Because whatever book I was reading that day, like I was in the middle of reading, I stopped reading it. You know, I didn't, like I said, I got to start this right away as soon as I get home. So I mean, I probably did, because I never went to the bookshop without getting like 2 or 3 books at least. Normally like 4 or 5, you know. So I doubt very seriously that I only got that one book, but that was the main book. Like that was the book I'm like, I have to get home and read this book. So I went home and I, you know, right away, like no waiting or nothing. I started reading. I got into the book. It's a big book. It's a hardcover. And what he did is he actually stayed with them for like, I don't know, like a week, 10 days or something like this British journalist. And it's just like he was talking about the trek and how he had the trek to get up to where their camp was in the mountains, and how they gave this guy their horses, right, so he could ride on the horse, and they walked, and he was just talking about how strong the Afghani people were, and you know how they just walked up those mountains like it was nothing, and all they would have is like a piece of bread and some dates in their bags, and you know he's just talking about all this type of stuff, right, this lifestyle. And I was just like, whoa, this is so cool, you know. I'm reading this, and then that's when it snapped. I was like, subhanAllah. That day when I was reading that book, that's when I started praying again. Like that was it. I mean, I at that point in this time, I had a beard. You know, I had already started growing my beard out, and my clothing style had become a clothing style that, like, I would shop at the Army Navy surplus stores. So I bought like all these, like, you know, I would buy like the, you know, the BDUs type, you know, so I would wear the pants, you know, and this was like my clothing. This is how I dressed all the time. Like I go to the mall, I had these like BDUs and a beard. But I wasn't praying. And then the beard had nothing to do with Islam. It was because of, like, you know, like I said, I was reading about the Cuban Revolutionary War. So I like, you know, Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, all these individuals, they had the beards. And of course, my attachment to that, you know, became even greater because of when, you know, because, you know, I'm not practicing Islam. And their movement was called the July 26th movement, right? This was when they started their revolution. They started their revolution on July 26th. And this was not the revolution where they took over Cuba, but this was the revolution when Fidel Castro got imprisoned and almost got killed, got executed because of this. Then they extradited him and they kicked him out of Cuba and they went to Mexico. And then that's when they formed up, you know, the militia that they formed up to go back to Cuba to take over Cuba. But the original revolution, the uprising that they had, was on July 26th. It was like in the 50s. I can't remember the exact year. But they did it in the late 1950s, right? So I was born on July 26th. So when I'm reading this and I'm like, wow, the July 26th movement. I'm born on July 26th. You know, because how, you know, I'm not Muslim. Like I said, I'm Muslim, but I'm not practicing Islam like that. So yeah, my mind's not thinking like, you know, I'm like, wow, you know, look at that, you know, they did it on my birthday, you know. So, you know, that was like always my association with that. So I started growing my beard out like them. I started, you know, dressing like, you know, like, because they always wore BDUs. So I went Army Navy surplus. I bought all these BDUs, and you know, I started buying all this type of stuff, right? And going out to the woods. I mean, there's like a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, I'll get into that later, you know, like but this is gonna go to the second book that had the effect on me. Like right now, this is the book. Like this book about, you know, when this guy went to the mountains and interviewed the Mujahideen. This book had, like, that was it, akhi. I like as soon as I read that and I saw, like, you know, what they were going through and how they were fighting the Russians. So then I would go to the masjid. And I would pray in the masjid, all the, like my whole life started, like, I was still doing what I was doing. But at least I started going back to Jumu'ah, and I started praying Jumu'ah in the masjid. I started praying, you know, praying a different salawat in the masjid. I would cut the time that, you know, I was available for people. It became greatly reduced, you know, so especially on Fridays, you know, which Fridays was always the most important days for these kuffar. to get whatever they need to celebrate. But along with time. But I used to cut that time down, and I was just like, started going to the masjid, and I started trying to get more in tune with the religion again. And there's this book. I mean, and even to the point where I was sitting down one night, I was reading the book. I couldn't put it down. So the girl that I was with at the time, she came to the house. This was the girl I was with her for years, but I think I mentioned her in one of the previous episodes where I said, we're going to get married. She refused, but then, I'm a weak man, along with time, so sahibul hawa, we follow our desires back in those days. So, we end up falling back into stupidity. So now she's still in my life, right? And she came over with a friend, another girl. She's like, come on, we're going to go bowling. They had this place where they had it's like a disco bowling, where they turn out the lights and they have the black lights and everything is glowing. It's like this type of bowling. So it's like they have a DJ. Said, come on, we're gonna go to the bowling place. I'm like, man, y'all go. She's like, what? She got angry. She's like, why? I said, man, I'm not putting this book down for nobody. I'm not putting this book down for nobody. Y'all go enjoy yourselves, have fun, but leave me alone. I want to stay here and read this book. And man, she got angry. She started like, you love the book more than me. I'm like, yeah, yeah, probably do. Because this book right now is very interesting, and I'm benefiting from this book right now. So, and because I wasn't this book had just turned me inside out as far as the introspection, because I just looked at what these guys were struggling against the communists. Because this is the issue, right? I'm reading all these books about communism. But now I look at communism, what did they do? They fought against the Muslims. So this just opened up my mind whoa. So you're telling me now these communists that I keep praising so much and reading their books and taking on their ideology, they were fighting the Muslims. But the Muslims stood up against them, against all the odds, and buried them, and caused the collapse of the communist state of the USSR. Of course they're going to say, oh, America did it, Europe did it, but it's the Muslims just buried them. So, and I'm like, why now am I going to put this down? And I'm so in my mind right now, so introspective about this and what's going on and, this whole thing. And I knew brothers there in the masjid from Afghanistan that were fought in Afghanistan, Afghanis. So I was like, my concern was going and sitting with them, not going out with these girls, So I was like, y'all go. And it she just kept pushing, and finally I was like, all right, whatever, khalas, man. I just put a bookmarker in the book, put the book down, and said, all right, man, I'll go with y'all in an hour or two, come back. I got to get back to this book. And sure enough, we went out, we bowled. I did not enjoy myself for 3 seconds. 3 seconds, I did not find any enjoyment. I was just like, whatever, just throwing the ball, and I was just waiting, just kept, I didn't have a watch at that time. Keep looking at the clock. I never, never used to carry a watch. And I think Malcolm X, he used to say, never trust a man who doesn't wear a watch. Allahumma stan. And I knew that statement at that time, but I still, didn't wear a watch. But, so anyway, so as soon as we get back to the house, that's it. I'm in that book. And I just I read that book until Fajr. And then, Fajr, I got up, I changed my clothes, I went straight to the masjid. I that's how it just got me. I said, again, just like my previous stories, I would like to say that this was it. This was the change, and then I became a better person, and now I'm off to Yemen. Don't get your hopes up on that one. But each thing was a stage. It's I kind of I would take 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 5 steps forward, 6 steps back, 8 steps forward. So it was kind of like that until I just started that forward progression, because my mind was so messed up. And my life, everything was just so messed up from not having the proper upbringing. It took a lot to shock me out of that lifestyle, to shock me out of getting. And that's what I'm trying to tell you guys is you have to understand, I don't care what situation you're in or what situation you see another person is. I would never lose hope with another person after knowing what I went through. And people try to talk to me so much. And I was the most hard-headed individual. If I wanted something, like I said, if I wanted a book, I would walk miles to get that book. I would walk miles to get it. I don't care. I would go through. I'd be sweating in the Florida sun like crazy. In the middle of the summer, I'd be walking at lunchtime. I don't care. You know, I wouldn't drink no water or nothing. I would walk to the bookstore, walk home miles, and come home and collapse from dehydration. But I do not care. If I wanted something, I'm going to get it. But if I didn't want something, and it didn't interest me, don't even try to talk to me about it. And that's how I was. So like a lot of brothers, they tried to talk sense, but it's just my, you know, I had a stone for a brain. You know, a very, 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 very heavy stone. And it wasn't going, you know, that information just out the other ear. So Allah Mustaan. But this book, it kind of started to like, you know, break that stone away. You know, because obviously my heart was not a stone, but it was kind of like it had some petrification there, you know. So there was like some stony, whatever. You know, there was some stony material around it that needed to be busted up so my heart could start to function again. So it took like, you know, that book was the start to at least, you know, get me going. I wish I remember the name of the book. If I remember the name of the book, I would buy it from Amazon right now and read it again just for the fun of it. Because that's what I did when I came back to Jacksonville, because I've been away for 20, you know, I've been away from Jacksonville since 1999. And I came back here at the end of 2021, in December. Like in the middle of December 2021 was when I came back to America. But I left Jacksonville in 1999. So what I did is I started to read a lot of the books. You know, I bought like a lot of the books that I read before because I wanted to reread them now with like, let me see how I view these books now. Let me see how I look at this now. And of course, like, you know, it's a completely different perspective. But still, this book, I would still read it again. If I had access to the book, you know, I would still read just to see like how I view the book now. How would I view the book now? And what would I see about this book now, you know? So inshallah, I'm going to try to find the name of the book. I found it before. I couldn't find it online like a PDF or anything like that. So inshallah, I'll try to find it again. Inshallah, I'll let you guys know once I find it, inshallah. So inshallah, in the next episode, I'll speak about the next book that caused another major change. Allah Mustaan. This might not have been as good as that change, but it's yeah, you'll see, inshallah. Ilahuna subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.